Yes, I would like to go live. Yes, I would very much like to go live. Okay. Okay. How is everybody doing? For some of you, this might be the second time today that you're seeing my face and my screen, but if not, welcome. And if so, welcome back. Let's see what's going on Reddit. That's all I got. Let's see what's going on Reddit. Okay. Weekly free chat. That's fine. Looking for our TTRPGs with a dark gothic and steam or dieselpunk aesthetic. I like steam and dieselpunk. Hey Ian, I like steam and dieselpunk. Okay. I haven't really played any games set in those worlds. I suppose I should. That may be fun to try. But not that I'm not into it enough that I'm keenly following. Any tips for running a game with just one person who's new to RPGs? I mean, yeah, just run the game. I think sometimes we really overthink things in regards to the kind of player count. I think really what changes for me, or what I think about most, is just what kind of things you're doing. So if you think about a story that, Conan on their own is not doing the same kind of things like the Fellowship and the Fellowship of the Ring are doing. So just the adventures come, accordingly. If you're using published material and you want to run them through Isle of Dread or Keep on the Borderlands, something like that, then yes, you are going to have to make some adjustments, either in terms of kind of what they're doing or how they're able to do it. In other words, are you allowing a bunch of retainers or followers or hirelings? And allow, meaning that the game has the mechanics for that, but often retainers wise, you're limited and they cost money, and hirelings don't usually come into combat with you. You could relax some of those. You just have one person if you want to get up a team, or you just have them do things that single people might do. So, Conan, thief, guard, pirate, an armed, a mercenary, and run through those kinds of adventures. Or you think about Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. They, usually just two of them, and they're doing duo kind of stuff, but also probably a lot of overlap between what them and Conan are doing because they're a small group. If you have a bunch of people, you can do bigger things. And I guess I say that maybe I come across as being kind of flippant with that, but I think that's about it. I mean, yeah, there are supplements that you can superpower people up and do things like that. I don't tend to advocate for those because it's kind of like, it's just kind of, I guess on one hand, you're playing a different game. If this is what you're going to play, you're going to be playing solo and that's it. Then you want to put on Scarlet Heroes, something like that, that's going to beef up your characters. Then, go for it. On the other hand, I always think, I could play this and then I can go play with bring other people and do things like that. And if the game is more or less the same, and then you add in other people or do things like that, then that remains. Like if you were playing a West Marches kind of game and one player shows up, you could still play. But if you're playing a whole other game, then it's kind of a whole other thing. That's where I come out. But just play. What is a one person going to do? One person's probably not going to try to dungeon delve all by themselves. I suppose they could, but then you just play it like that. Otherwise, do heists and other jobs and maybe more social things and mysteries, and there's all kinds of things that you can do with one person. There are all kinds of shows and movies and things where there's essentially a single protagonist. Well, what are they doing? Just do that stuff. Do that thing they do. Am I the only one in the wrong for getting upset because my friend copied my RPG session? Okay, this one's good. This one sounds good to me anyway. Okay. By the way, I'm on the RPG subreddit. You may have noticed. Usually I just go to our OSR. I'm in RPG. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm here for now. My friend basically set up my game. Oh, sorry. This is posted by RipMotor5911. My friend basically set up my game using a specific system, which was fine. But I ran about 4 sessions, and then the following week I was extremely busy and told the group I wouldn't be able to run a session that week. Then my friend copied all my ideas and started running that game. Am I wrong? Note, he told me he copied them. I'd be fine if it was inspiration, but he even copied the characters and abilities that took me a long time to create. There were 8 abilities for each character with 6 characters. Am I wrong for writing character sheets while upset? Okay, so he ran about 4 sessions, then he couldn't, then his friend. So was it with the same group of people? Was he running the same? I don't understand. How could he, if he ran 4 sessions, how can he be running the same thing? Maybe it's different people. I think he should feel flattered. I mean, maybe if I'd be upset if they played that game, they're like, oh, we want to play that game, and that's my game. I did that. Yeah, he should have asked. But it's what was it? Theft is the sincerest form of flattery, or something like that. It's fine. There he is. Imitation. Thank you. Not theft. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So yeah, I would be annoyed probably, but also like, well, obviously I did something well enough that people want to copy me. So okay. Let's see. How to GM. Oh boy, what is this question about? This is posted by Zylarchy. How to GM. Hi all. I am creating a role-playing campaign for my SEL students. Is that like English second language? Or is that something else? To help them role play the concepts I am teaching them. I have never been a game master before, and I have no idea where or how to start. I have general plot beats in my campaign, but the notion that they're role playing, albeit it'll be monitored and guided by myself, might take us way off base is intimidating. I want to allow for some way off base role playing, but I only have 45 minutes in my classes twice a week, so I'm seeking advice and help on how to keep them roughly on track. I guess it really is, what is the track here? What are we doing? I don't know what SEL is. Is that second language? Does someone know? Is someone going to put there? I don't know. So basically, you're a teacher, you're running it for your students. To me, the track, for me, the one that's important is, well, what is it that you're helping your students learn through role play? If it's English, again, I don't know. I just keep thinking ELS, SEL. Then I would say the only thing that you really need to be concerned about is them speaking to each other, right? Role playing, if they're practicing kind of English language, let's say, just say language type of skills, if that's what they're going to be practicing, then I just want them to do language skills, and how they're doing that in the game. I mean, obviously, as long as they're not doing horrible stuff that's might be unacceptable on school grounds, then that's fine. If I'm trying to teach them math or physics or things like that, right, that will inform the thing. I think role-playing games are great for all of that, because you end up having to do a bunch of this stuff just playing the game. None of that has to do with plot. So I wouldn't worry about the plot. I mean, I usually said that anyway. Don't worry about the plot. The plot will come to you and stuff. But I imagine when I hear this, they've never been a game master before. I don't know what they didn't say what they've been playing. Maybe, hey, Gary Burnett, maybe their history is in more narrative things, and so they feel like they got to keep folks on a narrative kind of track. Personally, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just concentrate on getting them up and playing and having fun playing, and then figuring out, well, what are the concepts I'm trying to get across, and then you kind of want to steer them towards those concepts, which to me is a separate thing from my story. But that's me. I'm not sure. This is one of those things where you really could use to give a little bit more detail. Oh, SEL, social emotional language. Oh, okay, Gary, I got you now. Let's see. Social emotional learning, or integrated SEL, teaches students essential life skills like managing emotions, building relationships, setting goals, and making responsible decisions. Okay. Well, yeah, then I for sure, that pretty much, thanks, Gary, that pretty much solidifies my point, being that, yeah, all that stuff is just in the game. And you can put stuff in the game to push those concepts forward, like having social relationships with people in the game, and NPCs and different I don't know, I don't want to call them plot points, but it could be hooks, things happening, right? You engage them with NPCs, then those NPCs either become distressed or have needs, and you can help them with their needs, and you can do all this stuff. And that is what I would concentrate on, right? Okay, how can I put in this game world the things, these hooks that are going to get them to interact with this social emotional learning stuff, and not they need to get to A, plot point A, B, C. or D. But that's me from my particular angle. I acknowledge my my bias. All right, here's some watered down apple cider for the working man. Cyberpunk with magic. I just think Shadowrun. Go for Shadowrun. I don't know what Shadowrun's like these days, but go for it anyway. Political intrigue, campaign settings, or adventure modules, preferably a low fantasy setting, but it's not a requirement. I'm looking for systems, not looking for systems, just ideas and hooks. Something in the vein of City of Lies for Legends of the Five Rings. Many thanks in advance. I'm curious what they say. I don't really know too many. There's a Chronicle starter for A Song of Fire and Ice campaign. Sword of the Serpentine. Pathfinder. I don't know. If someone's telling me Pathfinder for political intrigue, not that I'm sure that those, I'm not saying that Frankie Castiglione, who's promoting those, is wrong, but that's a lot. Like, here's a lot of combat with some political intrigue, maybe that's causing it or behind it. I don't know. Harnworld campaign setting. I think it's hard. I think the thing is with a lot of these intrigue things, they're difficult because a lot of times the time scales are not maybe exciting. I mean, I guess depending on how romanticized they are in terms of, things usually can go kind of slow in these things. You're having talks and discussions and all the intrigues. Oftentimes they're the stuff that you put behind just in the woodwork and the mechanics of things to get adventure started. Like, this happened. You got to go run off and do this adventurous thing. And what set it in motion is the intrigue. But often you don't interact with the intrigue directly for a lot of time because it's not adventurous, or you have to work to make it adventurous. People have to be really cutthroat. So, you can have things like, there's assassination attempts, and oh my gosh, someone's trying to poison the mayor, and there's a wedding, but they're going to try to raid the castle like all these different things happening, but it can feel like a lot if it's happening all the time. So I think what I've gotten folks interested in the intrigue, it really is just like what I said, adventures happening, but it's clear that the adventures, it's clear that there are strings being pulled behind the adventurous things that you're doing. And then players, if they become engaged with that, will want to get in there among the strings. And at a certain point, when the world is developed and you understand the world, the players are going to want to pull the strings themselves or try to cut strings. Hey, we don't like, the bishop keeps working against us because we've killed the guard and we found the letter from the bishop or whatever. Oh, okay, so now we're going to try to do the bishop. I guess my example for that in terms of fiction or media is kind of Berserk. If you haven't read the manga, the original, the first anime series that has that arc where it's kind of a really low fantasy campaign, basically, there's a lot of that where the guy Guts, who's got the giant sword, ends up joining this group where he loses a duel and is forced to join this group of mercenaries, and a lot of that arc is about the rise and then fall of these mercenaries, but a lot of that has to do with them rising through the ranks of this kingdom and all the politics that come with that, the people behind the scenes, who likes them, who doesn't like them, who's trying to do this, who's trying to do that. And I think that's how I'd want to do it. So check out Berserk or watch one of the videos that goes through with that Berserk arc. I forget what that arc is called. There's a name, but the Band of the Hawk stuff would kind of be how I would try to get that in there. I don't know if like D&D, I don't want to get into you need a specialized system, but I think I would use a different system if I really wanted to play a game where you're, Roman senators or something, where you're basically, there's no combat, there's no adventure at all. You're walking through the halls of the Senate and you're doing things like that. And other than maybe having to go to war, in which case the senators often, fought and were generals and all that stuff, you're not doing kind of adventure stuff. I'd probably want to pick some kind of system that's really just all about the social aspects, because otherwise a lot of that stuff that your D&D type characters are good at just doesn't come into play. Okay, let's see. Keep scrolling. Running a space campaign, need a system generator. Don't know. What is the opposite of simulationist? Would that be gamist? Hidden Gem Chronica Feudalis. I don't know. It's a combination of a step dice system with some concepts from Fate Life Path. I'm down with the Life Path stuff. Okay, here's one should be interesting. This is by Black Torch Studios. Random encounters aren't useless. I can feel the fist shaking at the sky. Hey, Bruno. Bruno says that they've been playing Mythic Bastionland. It can really become a sort of Game of Thrones thing. It is quite cool. Yeah, Mythic Bastionland. I think it's good. It's yeah. I think that some of the myths can definitely and events could definitely lend themselves to an intrigue style of play, and because it's just what it's trying to do, and not being, it's not really trying to be that kind of gritty scraping for everything. It has a great, you're already your knights as hard as you. I even just think just starting you off at knights automatically gives you an impetus to want to get involved with the political stuff. That might be another thing. It's something like Birthright or one of the things where you're playing and you're already part of the ruling classes at some level, not necessarily a king, but you're in there somewhere. Then you have a reason, you have a natural entree to wanting to get into the political maneuvering. Whereas if you're starting off as a nobody who was the son of a dirt farmer and your dirt farmer was killed by orcs and you're wandering the road and you've stumbled into town with 2 silvers in your pocket, you don't have that. You're not going to, as a player, you're not really going to feel that's your spot. It's not really your spot as a character. That's more you're building up, and then like in your kind of classic D&D progression type thing, when you become you rise up and eventually you become a lord and then maybe become a king and then you're into it. But certainly for games that kind of start you where you're already someone of authority is going to have a leg up, which you could obviously do with the old D&D game. You can say you guys are all lordlings or minor lords or whatever. Okay, so here we go. Random encounters aren't useless. Random encounters aren't useless. Your system makes them irrelevant. If a fight doesn't matter past the next long rest, of course it's pointless. You bum resources, sleep, and the world resets. The problem isn't random encounters, it's daily reset design. Random encounters work when consequences persist. What actually makes them matter? 1. Consequences that last, lingering injuries, partial recovery, exhaustion, gear wear, scarce supplies. 2. Resource drain that sticks if everything refreshes overnight. Optimal play is always Nova, rest, repeat. If recovery is slow, conditional, or risky, even small encounters carry weight. And choosing not to fight becomes a meaningful decision. This also highlights different types of play besides kill the thing. 3rd, loot isn't just XP or gold. Supplies, replacement gear, information, pressure, signals of danger. Sometimes the reward is simply not being worse off than yesterday. The real issue, some systems train players that nothing matters until the dungeon because the system wipes the slate clean every night. Fix recovery, make pressure cumulative, stretch resources across days, not encounters. Do that and random encounters stop being filler. What system have y'all played that do this well? Or what systems? Whew. Okay. So this is interesting because I like what they're saying, but I think they're missing a little bit of the point. And it's not necessarily the point of what they were originally, because I think that originally random encounters were definitely this thing in the background, this kind of ticking time bomb of, oh gosh, you don't work fast enough, you don't work efficient enough, you might get caught in a bad spot or in a bad way. So all this stuff about kind of resources and you're just trying to get to the dungeon, and you might get to the dungeon and suddenly you're not capable of really doing much in the dungeon because you've already taken some hits. So what do you do? Like, all these decisions are very good. Logan 9 says, only an issue in a certain and related game. Most games don't make quote unquote resets so easy. Yes, I mean, right there. This is definitely trained. This is definitely not trained, I should say. This is definitely aiming at a certain folk. But I think one of the things with random encounters that, as they've evolved and how I've enjoyed them, is yes, there is the danger. Yes, there is the potential drain on resources. But there's also the fact that they inject more unknown. They inject that dynamism. They just inject a bit of, well, there's the randomness part, but I didn't want to call it randomness. It's like a serendipitous thing. I mean, I can talk in different games I've played, different games I've run, where really interesting things have come from random encounters that had nothing to do with the resource train. You know, you meet a guy on the road. Oh, I roll him up. Oh, he's a wizard. I play him like he's a little bit nuts. The party takes a weird shine to him for some reason. They decide to kidnap him and force him to join them. Then he escapes. Then he decides to plot vengeance on them. Then they've got this whole enemy going on. That was a thing that happened with me. I just rolled up a random encounter, and it was I got like I got a wizard. I was like, oh, this is a classed character. Oh, it's a wizard. Oh, interesting. What are they doing? There was no fight. There's nothing. But it just started this whole chain of events that was completely unscripted that led to some really fun stuff. And basically, a big bad evil guy was created off of this thing. In the game I play in Daniel's game, we've run into people that ended up being major players in the sense on the political scene of the what is it, the Mystic Isles? Is that what it's called? Whatever. That I'm pretty sure we're just wandering creatures, but it's like, oh, it's this guy. He's a lord because he's a level 9 NPC. Oh, he's a lord. What is he a lord of? Oh, okay, can we get him back? Sure. What's he doing there? Okay, and they become somebody. And I think part of what makes them so fun, not just for the players, but really I would say specifically for me, is that it wasn't something I had predetermined. It's like, oh, there's this guy. What's this guy doing here? Why is this guy okay, this must be going on. And you kind of piece things together. And sure, it doesn't always turn into something, but sometimes it just turns into this great thing. And it's just, and you get to look forward to it as a GM. It's like, this is the thing that nobody asked for. It's like the eucatastrophe in a Tolkien kind of sense of nobody could have, maybe Eru, maybe the grand creator could have figured out this was going to happen, but nobody else could have. And it happened. And it's beautiful and it's weird. And it just, poof, it's like this flower that blooms and you don't even expect it. And I think the best thing is it's good to shake up our brains. It's good to shake things up. And I think when everyone's just like, nope, everything I'm doing is planned and studied and crafted, and I'm not allowing for any of that stuff, I just think we're missing out on an element. And random encounters can fulfill that a bit. Bruno says, random encounters are centered to emergent story. It is an amazing tool. Yes. Though, like I said, I don't know that, people like to, what I was trying to say, or what I want to say is that I think people want to attribute like to Gygax and Arneson like certain geniuses about stuff. They did enough great, okay? But I think some things are almost happy accidents. And I do think that wandering creatures were, at least in their very beginning, though I guess there was always that element. They always held out that element because you had reaction rolls, you had the fact that you could talk to them. So maybe not. Maybe I'm not giving them credit on that. I do think that they were very often used as kind of like, this is a danger that you need to be aware of. But either very, very early on or soon after, this idea of like, wow, these things can take up lives of their own. And everyone has stories like that of the wandering. It's not dissimilar to like the people that the party is most enamored with are the random dude in the tavern that you just gave a little tick or a little mannerism to, and suddenly the party's all about them, and they weren't anybody, but now there's somebody because you did it. It's the same kind of deal. But yes, I agree. Emergent story, they're big. And I just think as something to shake your brain up, kind of throw things off kilter a little bit, keep you thinking on your toes, I think they're good. And unfortunately, that doesn't get touched on in here. They're just they're just seeing them literally as resource drains. And this, I think, does them a disservice because as much as you can defend them, and what he's saying is true, the fact is that some people are going to look at it and just say, even from what this person's saying, and say, you know what, but this is just it's just a gate. It's just a resource gate. Why do I want to have it? It doesn't really do anything. Well, the thing is that they do things if you allow them to, but you got to allow them to. You got to let them in. Is Dagger Heart worth buying? No idea. Call of Cthulhu YouTube channels? Not me, really. Bump in the Night RPG? No, don't know that one. High Crunch, non-combat focused RPGs? I would say something like Burning Wheel, maybe? Has someone run Part-Time Gods? No. Don't know Trinity Anima. Don't know Outer Wilds. Oh, this one might be interesting. Okay, let me get another drink here. This was posted by a normal raft. At this point, I must hate being a GM, right? Oh, jeez. This is very much a rant and a cry for advice. I love role-playing, and I've recently found a board game which I love to bits, important for later. Then why does this hobby, which essentially combines role-playing and games, suck so much to interact with as a GM for me? Let me explain my point of view. I've GM'd for D&D 5th Edition, Pathfinder 2, Heart, Lancer, and recently Shadowdark. My longest was with 5e, as it was my first game, and I sure had rose-tinted glasses, but as my players hit level 8, I felt like I was constantly fighting the system. Also, my players were visibly losing interest even if they weren't expressing it. After some research, I went looking for greener pastures and found the sweet nectar that is Pathfinder 2. It had more options, the monsters were properly tuned, mechanics that made sense, and had automation with FVTT. I don't know what the F stands for, but in any case. I made a PF2 one-shot that I enjoyed, but man, the prep was tiring. Story, battle maps, choosing monsters, making and importing tokens, fixing odd automation quirks, looking up rules, music, and also my players didn't hook on like I did. At this point, I was properly burned out and took a break by becoming a player with another group in 5th edition where I could occasionally GM some wacky one-shots. I noticed how prep for these one-shots was somewhat more entertaining than my campaign prep, in that when the one-shot was done, I could hit a refresh button in my mind and all the burden of responsibility flew away. I didn't feel like I was in the awaiting chores mode afterwards. Some time passed, and I decided to try out a less crunchy system because I wasn't sure whether I disliked rules light in theory only. So I went and tried Heart. Banger setting, banger goal system, flavorful classes which hit a special thematic sweet spot between metal, occult, and edgy. I love edge. Outcome session 1, and oh my lord, I hate it so much. The delve mechanic is clunky, combat is supremely simple and boring. You have to prepare so many scenarios for one session because you're moving so fast. The player decides when they die or not. Where is the horror in my horror-themed game? I took the experience as reinforcement for my love of crunch, but it also taught me a few things. Preparing multiple diverse scenarios for one session is too much for me, and the possibility of players dying is of great interest to me as a GM. I don't really understand that bit. I mean, I understand that conceptually part of what I like about games is the threat, blah, blah, blah. But why is the possibility of players dying great interest to the GM? Like, what does the threat of the players dying do? Because I could see running a game, like, it doesn't feel, it really, I mean, you know, I have to figure out, for me as a player, I think about what stakes do I want, right? What if it's not going to be death? What's it going to be? What kind of stakes might be worth it? And I think you could probably come up with stuff. It's not necessarily what I would want to do, but I could see doing it. But me as a GM, I don't know that, does it, I mean, other than, I guess what I would want is that I want the same decision making that I get in my game. So I wouldn't want players just plowing everything, like when you turn invincibility mode on in a video game and you're just plowing around stuff because it doesn't matter. I wouldn't want that. So if that's what they mean, okay, I understand that, because I want all the kind of spectrum of decisions and actions to be in play and not just push forward because nothing can stop us ultimately. But if there are other stakes and other things, ultimately I just care that there are some kind of stakes that help drive player decisions, not necessarily what that stakes are. But maybe he's saying that as a kind of shortcut to that. I'm not sure, but I always find some of the stuff fascinating when GMs get hung up on these things that are really more on the player side and say, do I care that much about that? I might not. Okay, some more time passed, and I thought, maybe I only like the game part of the hobby. So I tried Lancer with an incredible amount of restraint for GM pizzazz, simple battle maps, no music, simpler tokens, no automation, and gave full narrative control to my players. I liked the combat, but even then, the combat prep felt like a chore since you pretty much have to assemble modular enemies, unlike in Pathfinder 2, where they come out right out of the bestiarian. I also found that if I don't have narrative input as a GM, I personally lose interest in the whole thing as well, so I canned the Lancer test. This did confirm my like of crunch, though, but it raised my eyebrows as the complexity of the prep time of such systems, and also made me realize that simple visuals and low effort for GM pizzazz is completely fine and my preferred way to do stuff from now on. One thing I want to say is I do appreciate that they're kind of going through this self-discovery. They are trying games, they're doing different things, trying different things, and figuring out what it is they like and they don't like. So I like that after each of these steps, they have revealed something about their particular wants, likes, dislikes, etc. Okay, so I don't know Heart though this makes me want to check it out. Bouncing from the lesson from Heart that I may like player lethality more than other GMs, I decided to recently dip my toes in Shadow Dark. I've only done one session with players that I don't vibe with, immediate family, lol, which I completely forgot about until I was reminded that I did indeed do it. I don't think it was a system problem, more so a player problem. I also let myself use a pre-made adventure since I wasn't sure if I was wholly interested in the first place. That decision did save a ton of time for potential prep time, but I wasn't enamored with the system. Although I really liked how it did inventory management, the torch, and crawling rounds, which created genuine mechanically induced tension. Tangentially, I found an online board game which puts me in a position similar to a GM in which I interpret ambiguous rules, but unlike with tabletop role-playing games, I don't directly participate as a player with stakes, and the players are against each other, not me. Unlike with TTRPGs, I don't directly participate as a player with stakes. I'm really curious what they mean there. Quinn's did a review of Heart, Ian says. Okay, maybe I'll check that out. I don't know what they mean there. I don't directly participate. Unlike in tabletop role-playing games, I don't directly participate as a player with stakes. I'm really curious. What stakes? How is there? Because now it's making me. I mean, obviously, there's a lot there to go on. I'm not saying they're playing kind of like players against the GM or something, but I'm really curious as to how they come at that. Because when I'm running games, my joy from me is running is not the same joy I get from playing the games. My joy is in seeing just fun, interesting things happening, players responding to it, and like the stories that it creates when all kinds of wackadoo stuff or cool stuff happens. Like making those moments or trying to help construct those moments, I guess, and then watching them explode, implode, or do whatever happens. Like that's, and like the world building stuff. That's what I love as a GM. So I don't know. See, some of the stuff where they're like, well, this stuff impacts me as a GM. It's like, I don't know, because for me, if the players are having fun, they're enjoying the world, interesting things are happening, and we're dealing with, and all these things are interesting decisions, and it's fun, and then like I'm good, I think, as a GM, which is why I'm always super like, I don't really care about the plot stuff, because that's not really what I'm doing, and I'm not trying to create a particular, canon story. I'm really more about, let me put these pieces on the board and set them loose and kind of see the chaos and stuff that happens from them. But I'm really curious what when they say that as in a TTRPG, as a GM, they are participating as a player and have stakes. I'm really curious, well, what does that look like for them? Because it strikes me as an odd thing to say. Not that you're not a player as a GM, but it's so asymmetrical, I think, that I'm wondering what they mean. Okay, so let's see. I noticed how much. Oh, wait, here we go. I noticed how much I love being the GM in the board game, in part because there's no prep. The board resets after the game is done, and everything is ready for the next game. The single link across all my attempts at finding the holy grail of TTRPGs is my fervent hatred for prep. The thing is, I don't know why I hate prep so much, but it feels like a chore. Maybe it feels too limiting. Like before session 1, I feel all excited and giddy at the idea of running a potential session. But as soon as session 1 finishes, I realize that I have housekeeping to do. My motivation goes to the marinara, the marinara trench, the one with tomato sauce. That's funny. Okay. The other tangent is role-playing. I role-played before I could tabletop role-playing game, but text-based role-playing freely never felt like I had to prep for it. The ideas landed in my brain, and I carefully wrote them out, and they came alive beautifully in a cooperative style of play. Granted, we were 2. I know what it is like for a group to form text-based role-play discussions and have only 2 members write 10,000 lines. Jeez. While the others are effectively out of the loop all the time. I really want to avoid that. My point being, both for the board game and the roleplay, the fun came in naturally. No external work needed to be done for the dopamine to hit. I've yet to find a tabletop system that clicks like that, and I doubt I'll find one. One-shots sound like a good idea until you realize that often involves reading tons upon tons of pages of a system, which I will ditch after session 1, an investment I don't find worthwhile anymore. I still have hope because I know that this hobby can make me feel happy as it did before, but it's looking bleak. Okay, and then, oh my gosh, there's more. Okay, so to be clear, I don't know what I'm looking for, but I can make educated guesses, not necessarily connected with one another, to try to revive the flame of being a GM in me. Non-heroic. I already have systems for that. I'm tired of feeling like the weekly cartoon feel-good show for my players. I want chaos. I want to feel like the weekly cartoon villain and revel in it. See, this is, I think, is what we're getting. I think they really want to be a player, is what I'm getting this sense in. Like, it's fun playing the villains. And I think a lot of GMs, certainly myself included, you get to kind of ham it up and chew the scenery as a villain. That's great. But that's not the thing, right? I get the sense here that they are looking for that specific thing of just being that villain. You're the player, like you are a player like the other players, and you've got this DMPC, for lack of a better word, and you're yucking up. And I feel like it's kind of maybe what they really want. And that's why things like the death and these other things are really hitting them. Ian says the only game prep I dread is cleaning the house. Yeah, well, that's another. I mean, yes, I think part of it too is that they really don't want to be a GM. I think is what it is. An extremely light system that complements roleplay instead of standing on its own legs, like something that could handle a world that is Pokemon times, was it JJBA? I don't even know what that is. A system that supports recurring villains. You don't need a system for that. It's just your villains don't die so they can recur. Yeah. I am cooked. Okay, and here we go. Some edits, which I guess is coming from feedback that has already been in these comments. 1, I wouldn't call myself new to the hobby. I may have underemphasized how long that first D&D campaign was and how much it defined me. However, it does feel like I haven't touched the genre, which would make the hobby click for me. 2, I've been a player plenty and I prefer GMing. 3, that's an interesting one. This post comes at a time where TTRPGs haven't been a focus for a while in my life. I've taken my break. Now I'm looking to see if there is a solution to my problem out there. This would be 4th. I'm not a stranger to homebrewing. I've done it countless times in 5e, and I know that it leads to a spiral of eternal homebrewing. System is too fundamentally flawed. It isn't worth it for me to jump into that spiral again. And then finally, was it 6? No, 5. I'm not antagonistic in my play, or at least haven't been so far. When I GM, people want to play under me, and I want them to succeed, but not easily. The issue is that I don't find enough tension with moment-to-moment play with the above systems, except Shadow Dark maybe enough to keep me interested. Yeah, I mean, they say they don't want a bullet player, they want a GM, but it really feels like they really want a board game where they get to be the bad guy. Because I feel like a lot of this stuff, right? They want them to see not easy. I mean, I think a lot of GMs feel like the way. I mean, obviously, you don't want people to skate through stuff, because I think part of the GMing thing is you're creating a challenging environment. That's kind of always in the first page of GM stuff. You're becoming a challenging environment, creating a challenging environment. Hey, Calclips. Oh, the 2 different streams. So one of them should be a vertical. The idea was, this is something YouTube's rolling out, kind of this idea of doing a vertical and a horizontal stream. So one of them should be vertical, I hope. If they're both horizontal, then that might be a problem. Yeah, Chaos says, you're playing the world, not a specific character. Yeah, ideally. And I think they kind of want to have this idea of kind of having their cake and eating it too. I just get the sense of, it's a really interesting. So I really appreciate that. Like I said, they're going through, they're looking at their experiences. They've been trying to go through and figure out, well, I like this, I don't like this. Next time, I like this and I don't like this. Next time, well, I didn't like that, and they're kind of going and they are narrowing it down. But I think ultimately, I think that the tension they're always going to have is the kind of the GM role and this thing that they want. I think they want to play, like, I don't know, they didn't mention the board game that they're playing, but there are a lot of board games where you're playing and you are specifically, one player is playing the bad guys. You're in charge of the enemies and the other player is playing the good guys, but you're using the game's mechanics and everything, so you're kind of doing all your thing, and it doesn't feel necessarily antagonistic, because ultimately you're kind of following rules, but you're just sort of, you're kind of doing it, you're almost managing it. I played some of the Metal Gear Solid board game with my cousins over the last couple times we've had visits, and there's a couple scenarios where they're playing the good guys, and I've taken on the role of the bad guy, and I'm making choices, but I'm very much managing things for this boss character, but I'm constrained in what I can do, so I'm just really following the rules. But still, it's engaging doing that, and it feels good. And yeah, you get to do the stuff. And yeah, there's no prep because you just set up the board game, and there's no whatever. So it really ultimately, like, I don't know. I think maybe they like the stuff that they're kind of in charge of, a lot of stuff that they're not in charge of the player. But you gotta kind of have. You gotta let go of some stuff, and you have to embrace some other things. And yeah, prep. If you hate prep, there are very few systems that have no prep. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you're probably gonna have to do some prep somewhere, because you can have it where it's like, oh, the world, I'm not doing any prep. but you want to have a really good knowledge of your world, and you're going to be rolling tables and you're going to be doing stuff, and you got to be really comfortable. To me, I feel like it's just kind of a different sort of prep. And maybe that's a prep they would like, but you're going to be, you got to really get yourself trained up on the improv and knowledge of the world to be able to run off of whatever. There are certainly systems that you can play without much prep, but again, you're going to have to get to that mastery of stuff depending on the amount of crunch so that you can run it and not have to worry about the mechanics stuff. But it's interesting. Like I said, I liked reading through their journey, even though I think they're just caught between two. It's like you can't have it all, man. You can't be maybe his situation would be one of those things where you have those GMs that are looking for someone to play their bad guy and let him play their big bad evil guy, and he can make his plans and do stuff, but then also just kind of play and not worry about those other things. I don't know. Chaoclips says, do you prefer Chaoclips or Chowclips? I hear both. I need to know, what is the proper pronunciation? Chowclips or Chaoclips? Let's see. And they say, in between sessions, I feel like prep is really neat in order to extrapolate on the emergent story. Yeah. I mean, you got to really, to me, that's part of the fun of GMing is, all this stuff's gone broken loose in session 1, and now I got to figure out all these responses and put the pieces together for session 2. And that to me is fun. If you don't find that fun, you're probably not, there's probably not going to GM. Chowclips. Okay. No, I think the name is awesome. I sense I think I went Chaoclips because I sense the play on apocalypse, but Chowclips it is. Bruno says, in Mythic Bastion Land, I feel like the initial prep is kind of a lot, but after that, it is a sandbox, and the prep for the next session feels pretty minimal. One time, all I needed was 15 minutes. Yes, there are definitely, I think sandbox play front loads a lot of prep. So you do a bunch of prep to get your sandbox ready, but if you do have it ready, after that, it can be very low prep. And Mythic Bastion Land's like that. Maybe it is even more of that than others, but that's pretty much the one of the benefits or trade-offs with the sandbox is you're going to have to do a lot more prep up front than in, say, a narrative type game. But once you've done that bunch of prep up front, week to week, until things really get shaken up, then you're pretty much good to go. Oh, Chocolates. Yeah, it's 5:30. Yeah, my wife and her sister are in China at the moment. So it's the time difference as we've texted back and forth and things has been pretty funny. Where she was, it was like 8 a.m. this morning and she's texting me before she's going to bed. It's pretty wild. Oh, I appreciate it, Chowclips. I like your stuff. So I keep, we should do something, even though the time, well, actually, yeah, we should do something at some point. Sometime. The time difference, actually, the 12 to 13 hours isn't actually too bad, really, because it's just, you're just that opposite. It's just, I always keep telling my daughter, like, Mom's in the future. She's like, yeah, whatever, Dad. She doesn't care. Okay. Thinking about buying Monstrosity. Don't know it. Emotion as key to character in RPGs. Whoa, they published it through Obsidian. I'm going to skip. I really don't feel like I'm that good. I'm not the person to talk about that. I don't know that I play characters that have... I'm like emotion through action. My characters will do stuff, and that's how I do it. I need to play more games where we're delving into the emotional stuff, because it's something that I will readily admit not my strong suit. Oh yeah. So Chowclips is running an open table ODD game in a few hours. Oh, nice. Yeah, it works. If you don't mind getting up at 5:30 in the morning, it totally works. I ODD is really great. And part of my whole reason for making my game was that I liked a lot of what it was doing. I just wanted it to do it in a little bit simpler way. I always wonder for Daniel, because Daniel, aka Bandits Keep, he's perennially working on his, what does he call it? Unchained. And I think one of the things and he's very good about it, but there is a thing where you kind of make these decisions, or that the switching between, so his is mostly, it's really more chainmail than OD&D, because we don't use the alternative, aka the main combat system. We use the chainmail systems. And I always just wanted, like, I really like the 3 systems, but I wish it was one. Like, mechanically, we didn't have to swap between them. So I wish there was some way to kind of just unite them all into something. I mean, it's a weird thing is I've been maybe playing for 3 years, and I guess 3 or 4 years now, maybe I'll call it 3 years. And we haven't used the man-to-man, just hasn't come up. I think it came up. I think you just reach a certain level and you're pretty much always on the fantasy combat table, or you're in the troop combat table if you're running into lower level stuff. And you're not, I guess we haven't done kind of mono combats where we're using the man-to-man. It's troop or fantasy. And I kind of always wanted to sort of see if I could combine those together. Chocolate says they only really like the abstracted combat system. I really like the troop. I mean, the fantasy combat is fine. It just changes things, but I really like the troop. I mean, that's where I got my system. That's where my whole D6 dice pool came from, me really liking that troop combat system. It does feel very fast. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Jason says, doesn't White Box attempt to unite chainmail and OD&D combat? I don't know. I'm not familiar with White Box. There's really not a clean way of bringing them together because they work so differently. So for example, there are three ways of doing combat in chainmail. One is your troop combat, where you're rolling 6s. You're rolling a dice pools of d6s. 6s kill, but generally they kill. And so what you look at is you look at the offense versus defense, but in a very broad way. You're armored foot, heavy foot, light foot versus armored foot, heavy foot, light foot. So on the a guy in his underwear with a halberd would be heavy foot, or no, armored foot, I think, for the halberd. But their defense would be a light foot, and you're rolling these things, and then they have different numbers. So okay, armored foot versus light foot, it's a 4, 5, or 6. Any of those kill. Light foot against armored foot, you have to basically, you lose some of your dice, so it's like you get only, it's per man, right? So it'd be like, it's 1 die per 4 men and only a 6 kill. So you're doing all that kind of stuff, right? So there's that. Then there's man-to-man, which is it the 2d6? But you're actually looking at the individual weapon versus the individual armor, not armor class, but actually the armor, which is really cool because then you could do things like say, okay, a mace is actually more performant versus, say, plate mail than chain mail because of the way those two armors work. So you go, okay, so you have those numbers. And essentially, I think I don't know how many hits. Is it just 1-hit kills? I don't remember. Remember, chain mail was a war game, so they weren't interested in having multiple rounds of having tons of rounds of melee. I mean, you could have multiple rounds of melee in their mass combat, but it's a lot of that kind of thing. And then finally, fantasy combat, which was 1-hit kills, was creature type versus creature type. Nothing else matters. Your armor, it no longer matters what armor you're wearing, no longer matters what weapon you're wielding. It's just, are you a hero? Are you a wizard? Or what are you? And then you're up against whatever that other creature is. 2d6, winner takes all. And in chainmail, Daniel doesn't do it. You actually do your hit dice and damage versus the other creature's hit dice. So you do have a little bit more survivability, depending on what you're facing. If you're facing a 12 hit die elemental and they hit you, I'm a superhero in his game, I'd still be knocked out and potentially dead because they hit me 12 versus -8, right? I'm done. I'd still be done because I have magic armor and I have magic shield, but the pluses end up giving you kind of a lifeline, but not enough. So those are kind of how they work. But you have to kind of switch between them. I mean, not in a particular combat, but in a situation, it's like one or the other. And different things matter depending on what you're doing. So some decisions, if you're in troop combat, then using a halberd might matter. Even if you have a magic sword, it might be better to use the halberd because you go from heavy foot to armored foot. But in fantasy combat, the +1 for your magic sword is the only thing that matters. That +1 matters. Nothing else matters. And the thing I like about it that he's talked about, and I'm sure on his channel he's talked about, is you're kind of channeling. For him, it's a lot of channeling like the sword and sorcery stuff. Like Conan's Conan. You give him I think earlier I mentioned like, hey, give Conan a spell book. He's beating people over the head with it. In fantasy combat, it literally doesn't matter. Yes, Conan picking up a pencil coming at you is as dangerous as Conan with a scimitar. It's the fact that it's Conan, not what Conan is using. Like Conan's the thing. Conan barehanded is Conan, and he's a hero, whatever. He's hero, superhero, whatever he is, like that. He's Conan. In other things, it would matter. In this, it doesn't matter. But then also, at least it could be a little bit weird because if Conan's fighting 8 guys, then the pencil matters. Whereas you're fighting a dragon, the pencil doesn't matter. You know that. And there's some interesting things, and you don't get to choose as a player really which one you're on. I mean, obviously, if you go to fantasy combat, you're in the troop combat. Like they can't go on the fantasy combat because they don't make the table. But it's great. But like I said, I'm always wishing, like, man, it'd be great if there was a smooth way to transition through these different modes. But and that's kind of what, that was part of my my inspiration for designing my own kind of thing. Oh, Yorkshire Matt said, wasn't there a supplement called Swords and Spells that did that for ODD? Yeah, I have it somewhere. But yeah, it was clunky. A lot of those things just were not. It was like trying to redo chainmail with OD&D stuff. Let's see. I got to catch myself. Chowclip says their favorite implementation of man-to-man combat is actually an OD&D fighter only hack called Meatheads. Oh, I'll have to check that out. I know I've seen it. I think I've seen it on Itch. Jason says, sounds like the source of weapon versus AC in AD&D. Yeah, it might have been this idea of the different, but they can't do it quite as well. I mean, they can get kind of close, but then you have the shield part of it, because it adjusts your AC, but they're kind of get there. Let's see. Chopclips also said, I feel like the inability to choose stems from chainmail. I played it with and without the fantasy subsystem, and it feels like the fantasy subsystem works when played as a war game. Oh yeah, it totally does. I mean, and there are things in the war game. And again, Daniel, who's my main entree into the playing OD&D stuff, I have OD&D, but I didn't really play it until I started gaming with him. He runs a con game where he does an OD&D dungeon delve that then transitions to a chainmail war game. And what's awesome about it is it's completely seamless. You don't, you switch off when all of a sudden you're going from basically underground, and he's still using all the chainmail combat stuff in the dungeon. He's not using the alternate combat system, but it's mostly the troop combat until you start fighting things that are hard, in which case you may end up on the fantasy table. And then you just come out and all of a sudden you're in the war game, and basically you're playing it pretty much the same. I mean, he changes out for these little tiny minis. He's got these really, I forget the size they are, but these really tiny minis, and you do this whole war game, but you're basically doing the same thing. And it's great how you can just have this system that goes from guys in a dungeon to on this battlefield, and you don't have to, it's not like, oh, now let me show you this whole bunch of rules. Like, no, I mean, you got the units, and you might have to explain how units work versus individual people, but other than that, it's like, yeah, it just plays. It's cool. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else in RPG? I can also go in the OSR. Chocolate says, for what it's worth, in my OD&D game, I just use Target 20 for combat. I primarily use chainmail for the solo sessions because it's very quick. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those oddities. It's one of those funny things that people talk about. So Gygax in OD&D references chainmail, saying, hey, use this or use chainmail. But what he's doing is it's marketing. It's not real. And it's funny because people looking back at it are like, oh, chainmail. And they started going and using chainmail thinking that's how people did it, right? Because the other one is labeled the alternate combat system. So clearly chainmail must have been the primary combat system. Let's go dig into chainmail. The problem with this is that everybody who was around for those original games said, no, we never used chainmail. We always used the alternate combat system. And Arneson, I think once he got OD&D, they were using the alternate combat system. Gygax's table using the alternate combat system. Nobody was using chainmail, but they put it in there because, look, D&D is this, let's give chainmail a bump. Hey, we got this other product. Let's tie them together. That's kind of where that sort of came, right? That kind of came from. Similar to in the Holmes edition, which clearly was made so you're supposed to transition from Holmes to OD&D. You find these really obvious inserts because of just the timing of everything. Because I think Holmes was publishing in 78, 77 maybe. And so Gygax is already working on AD&D because they're trying to, for various reasons, including trying to muscle Arneson out, which didn't work, but still they're doing this stuff. Holmes is writing with the assumption that you're going from his 1 to 3 levels of play to OD&D. But then when he hands off the manuscript or whatnot, and they get a hold of it, and then it's like, no, go to AD&D. Forgetting the fact that in 1977, maybe you could get the Monster Manual. I mean, the Monster Manual was the only thing that at any point in 1977, I forget exactly when it came out. It might have even been 78, but let's say 77. The only book you could get for AD&D was the Monster Manual, which is the first one that came out. You have nothing else to do. It was just, but they wanted to push you that way instead of the way. So it's funny because like an archaeologist who pulls something out of the ground. It's like, look, this must have been how it is. They used chainmail, but the reality was that no, that's just marketing. They were using the alternate combat system. It's just a funny kind of thing. But us looking back at it got all enamored with chainmail, and there's a lot of fun stuff in chainmail. But it's just kind of funny because back in the day, the original folks were not using chainmail. Everyone was using essentially what became the D&D main system, which is the D20, which it works really well. I mean, it does. It is the D20 system is kind of just, it's good, you know. I can't hate on the D20. Let's see. Chocolate says people are retrofitting it in, which is fine since it does work quite well. Absolutely. But part of that is due to the retrofitting. Yep, the retrofitters are placing certain assumptions. Daniel did have to write a separate booklet for Unchained for what monsters fight as in granular detail, something you didn't have in Chainmail. Yes, it's true. So yeah, it is fun. It's I think the funny thing is just it's kind of invented by us as later peoples, right? It's like we are taking certain things and running with it. And it's like, it's just interesting in this case, because we can see it. It makes you wonder how many often in the past did people run with it? No, they obviously meant this thing and this was it. And really it was like, no, that's not really it. Somebody paid them to put this little insert in there. And 1,000 years later, we're reading it and going, this must be true. Saint Bob of the auto repair store. He really must have performed miracles. It's like, no, this is written by Bob's brother-in-law. And, Bob threw him a couple $1,000s to write him up as a saint in this thing. And he had no idea that this would be the one work that would last into the 28th and a half century and then be pulled back up where suddenly there's the religion of Saint Bob, the auto repair guy, right? That's the kind of the funny thing about it. But all the stuff that's come up out of it is really fun. And obviously I play in Daniel's game every week. It is amazing. So check it out. A totally unsolicited, unpaid for advert for Unchained by Daniel Norton. Oh, yeah, Metamorphosis Alpha. Yeah, exactly. All that stuff, right? Chow clips. Okay. Oh, here we go. Let's see what this one is. All right. What time is it? All right, I got a few minutes. This will be maybe the last one, maybe not. Posted by RPG PTBR. Exploration turns or crawling turns done right. In OSR, there is a lot of games that focus on exploration turns. Light source matters. Inventory size matters. In your opinion, what system rule set have the best rules and guidance for GMs for this? The absolute must read, or just your favorite ones, that would do as well. I don't know. Is there? Ian welcomes our Bob overlords. Exactly. I don't know. Is there one? Is there a book that does it? I don't know. I feel like BX, they do a fine job. So J-Elf likes Karen. Yochai is great. Nothing wrong with Karen. I should probably read through the Karen second edition stuff just to go through it. I'm sure Karen's is fine. Boba Fett doesn't like the usage die. Me neither. Let's see. Anything else? They're all talking about usage dice. I'm not going to get into it. I already said that. I already got my usage die rant out during the Crows announcement read. Let's see. Necropraxis' hazard system. There's lots of stuff. Oh, wow. Necropraxis deleted their hazard system? Interesting. Torchbearer. The thing is I guess, what is the difficult part with the turns? I guess it really boils down to and this is why I just like to go with the clockwork mentality. The players do a thing that's a turn. If you just do that, you say to the players, what do you do? And the players do something, that's a turn. If you just do it like that, I can't think of something simpler. And this is why I said, and this is a while back, don't worry about the time. Use usage dice for time if you want to. How much time are we in the dungeon? I don't know. You're underground. You can't see anything. Who knows? Make it be weird. Like when, things are weird when you're in those kind of spots. You don't realize how long you were doing something. Who cares? The time in terms of how long in the day it takes almost doesn't matter. Just all that matters is the turn. So just do it. Do a thing, turn, do a thing, turn. So you get this really simple pattern. Players, what do you do? They say they do a thing. You resolve whatever they say they do, turn. Players, what do you do? They do a thing, you resolve a thing, turn. What do you do? If it takes multiple turns, then that becomes easy. Oh, it's going to take you 20 minutes to do, or 2 turns to search this 20-foot room. Do that. That's it. And so if you could just do that, that's all you need to know. And then just what turns do stuff. And if you want to use a tracker, you can make yourself a little board, a little spin doodly thing that you turn. You could use a die. And so I guess the one thing as I can see is I think from that to simplify some of the encounter and other things so that you just get to do it every turn. I know that's why people like the overloaded like encounter dice, or I would say dungeon dice or whatever, so that your hazard dice, whatever it is, where you get to do it every turn. That way you're not counting like it's 4 turns until this, it's 6 turns until that. I get that. But really just turns. Just do a thing, turn. Anytime you do a thing, it's a turn. And if you need to tweak some numbers or tweak some probabilities to get the kind of distribution of events or other things to work, but then just do that and then it's easy. And it's a turn. Let's see. Choclips says, oh, terrain shifts. Like the world changes due to an overloaded encounter die. I'm not sure why it's loaded so much in the replies so far. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people are. That might be it. I don't know. I just think that like usage dice in terms of consumables, I just think is a little too random for me, but whatever. All right, let's do one more and then I'll call it a stream. Let's see. If you were 8 years old, what RPG book or box would you want your uncle to give you? Man, I don't know. What's a good? Probably Land of Eam, but Land of Eam is I feel like it's too complicated for an 8-year-old. Chocolate says they think it's very simple to track torches and encounters and all that, even early on. Yeah, it's not. It's really not that. It's really not bad. I agree. But I can also see that it's even simpler if you just do something on every turn as opposed to counting turns. But I agree that it is not bad at all. And you could probably come up with an app or use the VTT to just hit a thing so that a counter knows. Or like what I got, though I keep forgetting to bring it when I go to cons, is I got a six-sided die that's really big. And I just would counter it. And so everybody can see on the table, like 1, 2, 3. And so you just do that, and at 6, rotate back to 1, or whatever happens, or whatever, right? You just do that. Jacob says, if they were 8 years old, they would want Outcast Silver Raiders. He's joking. I mean, I don't know that there's I know there's that, what is it? Who is it? It's Numenera. They put out this thing like Say No Evil. I think might be good. It's kind of funny. Like, what would I want as 8 years old versus what I would want to give an 8-year-old? It's like Say No Evil or Boo Evil, something like that. Monty Cook Games, and I saw it at PageCon because they had a booth there. BX does a great job. I mean, maybe it's not written kid friendly, I guess, even though I had it at that age and managed to figure it out. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would want. Are all Modifius games as bad as Fallout? Don't know. I kind of like their read-through of Dune. I'd like to try playing it. Longshot looking for a YouTube vid about searching. If it was a collab with Professor Dungeon Master, it was not me. Classic Traveler. Okay, anything? Have we run out of Steam RPG subreddit? Let's see. Okay, well, there's Crow. I mean, I'm curious. We looked at Crows earlier today, so I am curious what people are saying about Crows. Or what they're thinking. AAA Battery 03 says, interesting. I love the fact that MCDM is committing to the idea that you need different games for different genres. Shouldn't be trying to make in every game like WotC or Paizo do. Curious to see how it turns out. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's true. I mean, D&D definitely pushes themselves now as that, but they didn't start out that way. They were just the only ones there, and they just kind of ballooned to fill the space. Chocolate says, let's see, hot take. I feel like the RPG subreddit ran out of steam a while ago. Yeah, I agree. That's not too spicy a take. All right, I don't think there's anything good. Let's go look in OSR. Let's see. And you know what? I don't usually do this. Let's go to what's there. Is there what's hot? Let's see if I can get one. I just want to end on a good note. Official Beck Me characters. That's cool, but nothing really to talk about. What's the most powerfully useful underground website that most people don't know about? Okay, that's cool, but I'm not going to go in there. Homemade screen. That's nice. Again, don't care. Some art. Great. Beautiful. Don't care. Let's see. Yohai's doing awesome stuff with getting Karen content in print if you're making Karen content. The dragon told us to play rough and kill lots of PCs. Okay. What's the latest rules light that's still playable? I don't know. I don't know. It probably depends a lot on your assumptions. Player knowledge is PC knowledge. Yeah, that's pretty much true. Except when they're cheating and reading the module or doing that stuff. Oh, Chowclip says they think BX says it's made for adults age 10 and up. Yeah, that's awesome. Where does it say that? Hold on a minute. I have mine. Wait a sec. In my binder, version of BX. Does it say that? I'm not doubting you. I want to see it. See it with my own eye. It says the original fantasy role-playing game for 3 or more adults ages 10 and up. Yep. There you have it. Oh, campaign setting map with locations based on songs. That's funny. See, the OSR subreddit, man, the hot is not helping me out here. Yep, Choclips, you got it. All right, hot. I was not working at best. Oh, like I love the illustrations, but man, I don't love them for this. I appreciate people sharing their work. Work on a new map, also nice, but I'm not looking for that. I don't. Okay, also nice. It's the same stuff. All right, I'm just gonna have to go to. I'm gonna have to go to new. What happened to like controversial? Wasn't there one you could sort by controversial? I'm just gonna go new. It's probably gonna be the same things again. My players are rolling up a chaotic party this week. Are there dungeons or scenarios that dovetail nicely with an quote-unquote evil party? Well, depending on your edition of the game, chaotic doesn't necessarily have to mean evil, though it kind of does. It's one of those weird things. If you look at the chaotic creature list and say, oh, D&D, they're mostly the things that are evil. But theoretically, you do not have to be evil and be chaotic because there's no description given about what it means to be chaotic. They never tell you until, is it AD&D? Maybe, I know Holmes has a different kind of alignment chart, but they never say. You read OD&D, I don't know, I don't even think BX, they don't really say too much about what it means to be law versus or chaos. And the other thing is detect evil isn't detect chaos, so it's a kind of a different thing. But I'm presuming that they are going to play them as evil. So then just do, because a lot of the stuff, it's the same. I suppose, they're invading an evil cult. Well, now they're invading a good cult. Like, just switch it around. Switch instead of them trying to stop the people from summoning Orcus, now they're trying to stop the people from summoning Orcus. Just flip the script around. You could do it. Be pretty easy peasy. All right, there's nothing here. All right. Choclips said that it was inspired by Elric, but I think it evolved along the way. Yeah, and Elric, it's been a long time since I read Michael Moorcock, and I was annoyed at him and his anti-Tolkien comments because I stan Tolkien. And I know in the Melnibone stuff that there's definitely more to it, but yeah, Gygax or Arneson, both, whatever, they just kind of yoinked it away, but took it kind of out of context. So that, you look at between the lines, like, yeah, it's kind of evil, but they don't actually say it's evil. They just kind of, it's implied where you look that it's evil, but it didn't say that it's evil. So it's really up to you whether you want to play them as evil or not. And I think you could, I think if you play law, and something I ran in, it was a BX based game. I was playing with basically sorcerers had to be, your wizards were chaotic, had to be chaotic. And the reason is that law was like the natural order And part of utilizing magic was you were essentially distorting or destroying or getting around the natural order. You are doing chaos. You are, by the nature of doing magic to do things on this plane, you are going against the natural order. Hence, you had to be chaotic. Okay. Max Munster says, what are we doing today? Well, Max, why does this always happen? Someone always joins. I'm about to call it quits. But I did go through some stuff on Reddit, talking to Chow Clips, talking to other folks. A lot of fun. But I'm signing off. It is time. It is time, my friends, to talk of many things. Of unicorns, of Capricorns, of cabbages and kings. I gotta go get ready for dinner. Chow Clips is about to go run an OD&D, early morning for them, late afternoon for others, open table game. We've all got stuff to do. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. I might do something over the weekend. We'll see. I know I always make promises and I don't go through with them. Something got to work on. Maybe this should have been my New Year's resolution. Could still be. If not, then, new stuff will come. Game on, everybody. And I will talk to you later. Bye.